The first time they asked her to use the service entrance, Leila was holding a guest's dry-cleaned blazer and a tray of room-temperature coffee. She had applied for the guest services coordinator position, a job she was technically overqualified for, of course, but the front desk manager took one look at her name tag, narrowed her eyes at her hijab, and asked if she could help out in housekeeping instead. That was 6 months ago. Now she smiled through it. The Royal Phoenix Hotel in downtown Charleston was everything the brochures promised: columned marble lobby, brass bellhop carts, plantation chandeliers, and an award-winning southern brunch that drew politicians and pageant queens alike. What the brochures didn't show was the staff elevator Leila had been told to use, even though she was now officially part of guest services, or the way her co-workers mispronounced her name on purpose: Leila, even Lydia, never Leila. "Sweetie, you've got to understand," the head receptionist Claire had said after her first week. "This is the South. People like familiar comfort. We're not trying to offend, you just don't really have the front desk look." Leila had blinked, lips tight. "What's the front desk look?" Claire smiled like she was doing her a favor. "You know, blonde, bubbly American. Relatable." She said it while filing her nails at the concierge stand. So Leila took the laundry up the service elevator. She bussed tables at the breakfast buffet when the busboys were short. She refilled the mints in the reception bowl. She took over for the bellhop when he was hungover on Sunday morning. She learned the whole building's plumbing layout just by asking questions. And at night, after her shift and before her online classes, she went to the tiny study room above the dry cleaners her uncle owned and studied hospitality law, hotel franchising, and startup business credit, because Leila had a plan, and it didn't include staying in the back. The day things started to shift was a Tuesday. Rain hammered the lobby skylight in pulses, like impatient fingers on glass. A guest, white, older, in a golf polo, walked in complaining about a valet scratch. Claire was already mid-smile. "You're not seriously putting her on check-ins now," the man muttered, nodding toward Leila. Claire stepped in so fast it made Leila flinch. "Of course not, Mr. Danvers. She's just covering the desk while we fix an error in our system. You know how techy she is." Leila lowered her eyes as always. She took her break early that day. She didn't cry. But she wrote something down in her notebook that night. "Buy it from under them." The thing was, Claire had no idea who she was dealing with. Leila wasn't just a girl from over there. She was born in Detroit, raised in Greenville, and had watched her father lose his diner because he trusted the wrong banker. She knew better now. She had built her credit. She had saved every tip. She had a cousin in property law. And she'd already started a hospitality LLC under a different name. What Claire and her polished clique didn't know? The Royal Phoenix Hotel was already in quiet financial distress, and someone was already making an offer. But for now, Leila wiped the counters, nodded politely, and kept using the back door. She just wouldn't be using it for long. Leila had learned long ago that power didn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wore rubber gloves and walked softly, nodding at every command, collecting discarded room keys and folded towels as if obedience were her nature. But she also knew what power felt like control, like leverage, like being 2 steps ahead in a game someone didn't even realize they were playing. And for the past year, Leila had been playing it in silence. Each night after her shift, she took the TU11 bus to the Northside Library, the only branch open past 8 p.m. on weekdays, and studied asset-backed lending under fluorescent lights while families whispered and teens clicked gaming mice in the computer lab. The librarian, an older man with a limp and a quiet kindness, once asked her what she was working on. She told him, "I'm learning how to buy the building that tells me I don't belong." He gave her the quietest smile she'd seen in months, and then he showed her the database of commercial real estate auctions the county kept, and how to search for liens and foreclosure notices. That's how she found out. The Royal Phoenix Hotel, glittering in its brochures, was drowning behind the scenes. 3 lawsuits over back payroll, 2 complaints filed with the city over ADA violations, and worst of all, an unpaid balloon loan coming due in under 6 months. It was the kind of thing guests never saw, and front desk employees weren't supposed to know. But Leila was neither, she was more, so she started small. She took on more shifts, late night, holiday, whatever she could, and funneled every extra dollar into her savings. She picked up side gigs translating Arabic contracts for a nearby immigrant legal aid office. She stopped buying new clothes, wore the same battered white sneakers, and brought lentils and rice in a worn Tupperware to eat in the employee lounge, while others rolled their eyes behind her back. She'd hear them sometimes. Is she poor or just stubborn? Maybe she's fasting at, religious stuff. Can't even pronounce her own name right. But Claire didn't laugh when the hotel's AC broke for 3 days in August, and Leila was the only one who knew where the backup water chillers were installed, and Mr. Danvers, the golf shirt regular, didn't protest when she found his missing Rolex in the valet locker room and returned it before he even realized it was gone. She didn't need thanks. She needed receipts, character references, a reputation she could later leverage. The next turning point came when she stayed late one Friday to help close out a billing issue with a wedding party from Atlanta. Claire was long gone. Management had gone quiet, probably at some local steakhouse doing damage control with a supplier, and Leila was at the front desk, alone, tired, focused. A man walked in, black, bald, tailored suit, Bluetooth in one ear. Not flashy, but sharp. He scanned the lobby and made his way toward her. "I'm looking for the manager on duty." Leila stood. "That would be me tonight." He didn't look surprised, just nodded. "I'm Ken, I'm with Northwell Acquisitions." Her fingers tensed slightly on the keyboard. He lowered his voice. "I'm doing due diligence on a potential partner purchase. Your GM gave me the green light to check the premises." Leila blinked. "You're looking to buy the hotel?" "No," he said with a half-smile. "My client is." She nodded once, slow. "Would you like a tour?" He looked at her differently then, like he saw something the others didn't. She showed him everything, the good and the bad, the water-stained. Ceiling on the 4th floor, the elevator that rattled too much between floors, the unreported mildew in the staff break room, the manager's stash of wine bottles in the basement supply closet. She didn't editorialize, just pointed, logged. Let him see, and when they reached the rooftop, where no guests were allowed, she gestured toward the view. "You see that lot over there?" she said, voice steady. He nodded. "That's city property, but it's being reviewed for rezoning. In 5 years, this whole block might be mixed use." Ken turned to her, eyes narrowed in impressed curiosity. "You studied the zoning map?" "I study everything," she said simply. He looked at her again, like a test had just been passed. "Who'd you say you were again?" he asked. "I didn't." She smiled. That night, Leila didn't sleep. She drafted a cold email to Northwell Acquisitions and attached her resume, minus the hotel job, and included a single sentence in the body of the message. "If your client is still interested in acquisition, I'd like to be considered for a junior partnership in the deal, or at least a seat at the table." She didn't expect a reply, but when her phone lit up at 3:17 a.m., it wasn't a text from her cousin or an update from the library system. It was Ken. "You free for lunch on Tuesday?" Leila smiled to herself in the dark. She'd take the meeting. At the restaurant across the street from the Royal Phoenix, the one where Claire and the owners weren't members anymore, because Leila wasn't just planning to buy into the hotel, she was planning to own the whole block. Claire noticed it first when the linens didn't show up. It was a Thursday, and the Royal Phoenix was fully booked for a law firm conference. 88 rooms, all suites. The kind of high-dollar weekend that usually bought her a bonus and a new coach bag. But by 3 p.m. the laundry service still hadn't arrived. No fresh sheets, no towels. The front desk was in chaos. Claire was snapping at everyone. "Call them again, check the loading dock, I don't care if their truck broke down." While guests with name tags and phone holsters hovered impatiently near the lobby espresso bar, Mr. Danvers complained about the fruit tray. Someone else said there was no hot water on floor 5. Leila, quiet as ever, was folding spare linens from the emergency cart near the service elevator. Claire marched over, heels clicking hard. "I thought you were supposed to be on front desk float today." "I was, but housekeeping needed backup. We're short," Claire huffed. "You always have some excuse not to be where I need you." Leila didn't flinch. "I go where the hotel needs me." The words were careful, neutral. But Claire stared at her a beat too long. Her perfectly glossed lips pressed together like she tasted something off. "Don't get cute with me, Leila." Leila blinked. "It's Leila." Claire walked away. That night, Leila stayed late, again, and watched from the staff break room window as a dark town car pulled into the back lot. Ken stepped out in a crisp grey suit, nodded at someone inside, then walked in through the front door. Leila waited. 3 minutes later, her work phone buzzed with a message from the GM's extension. "Please escort Mr. Northwell's rep to Conference Room B." She didn't correct them. She just went. As she led Ken through the hallway, past faded oil paintings and the dusty hallway runner that the owners kept promising to replace, he leaned in and whispered, "They didn't recognize you, huh?" "Not yet." He smiled. "Don't tell me you're having fun." Leila kept her voice low. "Not yet." They passed the lobby, where Claire was fake laughing with a guest. She caught a glimpse of Ken and stiffened, eyes flicking toward Leila, like a question she didn't know how to ask. Leila gave nothing back. The meeting was short. Leila waited outside, acting like just another staffer on duty, but she could hear enough. Ken's voice calm and professional, the owners pretending to be composed, but asking questions that sounded more and more desperate. "This is a family operation. We just need some time to restructure. A full acquisition seems hasty." When the door opened 20 minutes later, the owners looked smaller than usual. The GM didn't meet her eyes. Ken thanked them, then gave Leila a slight nod as they left the conference room together. She didn't ask what was said. She already knew. The next week, things started to shift. The hotel's floral supplier stopped delivering on time. The preferred catering vendor pulled out of a major event booking. 2 long-time employees suddenly gave notice. And then, someone changed the lobby thermostat settings, and no one on staff knew how to override them. Claire accused the maintenance guy. He shrugged. "Wasn't me." Claire turned on Leila next. "You always know stuff. You hear everything. If there's something happening, I just clean and check people in," Leila said with a small, unreadable smile. But inside she was already preparing for the next phase. What no one realized was that Leila hadn't just asked to join the acquisition deal. She'd matched 15% of the down payment, quietly, with the help of a local Muslim business collective and a low-interest development loan meant to increase minority ownership in downtown zones. It had taken her 7 months, 3 grant proposals, and 2 meetings with a city equity council. But she'd done it. She was, technically, the minority owner of the company, now offering to buy the Royal Phoenix. Ken knew. The collective knew. No one else did. Yet that weekend, Leila stood in the lobby as a bridal party came in, all sequins and champagne and shrieking laughter. Claire was at the desk, distracted and frazzled. The bride, impatient, leaned toward the counter. "Sorry, but where's the real manager?" Claire opened her mouth, then paused, because just behind her, Ken had walked in again. This time, flanked by two other men in suits, and this time he didn't ask for Claire. He looked straight at Leila. "Ms. Rahman," he said clearly, smiling, "we're ready for the final walkthrough. Shall we?" Claire turned slowly, her face unreadable, lipstick too red, eyes darting between them. Leila smoothed the edge of her sleeve. "Yes," she said, voice steady. "Let's." It took Claire 3 days to admit she didn't know what was going on. By then, the florist had cancelled again. The minibar supplier was reassessing their business relationship, and someone from corporate HR, whom Claire had never spoken to before, had called and left a vague message about transition planning. Then there was Leila. She wasn't doing anything different, not outwardly. Still wore those scuffed white sneakers, still used the service elevator, still ate in the break room like it was a privilege. But something had shifted. The other staffers noticed it first, someone from banquets. Why is Leila doing the payroll schedule? A bellhop. Why did Ken from that investment group ask for her again? Even the front desk intern whispered, "Did she get promoted and no one told us?" Claire heard it all and said nothing, but she started watching. Late Wednesday, after the lobby had emptied out and the night manager was distracted, helping a guest print boarding passes, Claire quietly opened the side file drawer in the executive office. She'd noticed earlier that someone had been in there. The lock was dusty, but the edges were clean, used. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for, just a hunch, and that's when she saw it. A white folder marked Pending Transfer, Northwell Acquisitions, Private Term Sheet Enclosed, Sub-File, Local Equity Partnership, Breakdown Percent Ownership 15% Leila Rahman. LLC. Claire stood completely still. It took her a few seconds to understand what she was reading. Leila Rahman? No way. She flipped the page. There it was again. Leila A. Rahman listed as the minority equity partner. Signature. Notarized. Time-stamped 3 weeks ago. Claire's mouth went dry. She sat back slowly, blinking like she'd been slapped. Thought of all the times she'd told Leila to smile more, to speak less, to stay in the back, to cover a shift no one else wanted. To clean up after her in the break room, the room felt colder, smaller. The next morning, Claire came into work dressed like she was going into battle. Navy blazer, gold watch, her name tag newly polished. She arrived early, earlier than even the kitchen staff. She positioned herself behind the front desk, scanning every guest, every staffer, trying to regain some sense of control. Leila came in 15 minutes later, carrying a tray of baked goods from a nearby halal cafe. She set them down in the staff kitchen like it was any other Thursday. Claire followed her in. "You know, it would have been nice if you told me." Leila turned casually. "Told you what?" Claire crossed her arms. "Don't play dumb." Leila raised one eyebrow, not unkindly. "Then don't speak to me like I'm stupid." Silence. Claire's voice lowered. "You set this up behind our backs." Leila shrugged. "You were never looking at my front." Another pause. Claire bit her cheek, then exhaled. "Why didn't you say anything? Would you have believed me?" They stood like that for a beat, two women in the staff kitchen, framed by a humming fridge and the smell of cardamom buns. Then Leila turned back to the counter, grabbed a coffee stirrer, and stirred her tea. "We all do what we have to, Claire." Claire stared at her, something between humiliation and awe blooming behind her eyes. Later that afternoon, Claire sat in her car during lunch and called one of the hotel's co-owners, the one with partial say in hiring. Her voice was sweet, clipped professional. "I just thought you'd want to know," she said, tapping her acrylic nails on the steering wheel. "That girl, Leila, she's inserting herself into the acquisition. You might want to double-check who's actually behind that LLC. It could get messy." The voice on the other end was tight. "We've already reviewed the partnership. Everything's clean. She's vetted." Claire's face froze. We were lucky to keep her on staff as long as we did, the man added. Frankly, if the sale closes, we may want to discuss what her role will be going forward. Claire swallowed. Her role? Yes, he said. She might be the new general manager. Click. That night, Leila walked past the front desk where Claire stood alone, back straight, jaw set. For the first time since she started at the Royal Phoenix, Leila didn't smile. She didn't nod. She didn't apologize for existing. She just walked through the front lobby like she belonged there, because she did. And tomorrow her name would be on the morning staff schedule, not as an assistant, but as acting general manager. The memo went out at 6:48 a.m. Subject line, Staff Update. Temporary management appointment. Most of the hotel's employees didn't even check their inbox until after their shifts had started. But word spread fast. Too fast. By 9:10 a.m., everyone, from the bellhops to the banquet, chefs was whispering one name with wide eyes and half-hidden smirks. Leila. It wasn't official, not yet, but the memo was clear. In light of the pending transition agreement, day-to-day operations will be overseen by Acting General Manager Leila Rahman, effective immediately, with full decision-making authority on staffing, vendor contracts, and guest services. Claire read it 3 times. Then again, she even tilted the screen like maybe the light was playing tricks on the words. But no, and it was real. Leila Rahman, Acting GM, and below that, signed by Northwell Acquisitions, CC'd to both hotel owners. No mention of Claire. No thank you. No warning. Just one clean cut, right through the spine of the old hierarchy. Leila didn't change anything that first morning. Not visibly. She didn't demand uniforms, rearrange desks, or fire anyone. She just stood behind the front desk, in a clean navy blazer, no name tag, holding a clipboard and a soft-spoken authority that turned heads as surely as sirens. She greeted every staff member by name. She gave a clear, calm run-through of the day's schedule, and when someone asked Juan carefully, "So are you like the boss now?" she just smiled and said, "I'm here to make sure everyone's treated with the respect they've already earned." It was the kind of line that made the janitor stand taller, and the kitchen crew whisper finally into their aprons. But not everyone was happy. Claire waited until the first lull in the morning, then marched into the executive office, heels clicking sharp across the tile. She closed the door and turned to face Leila, who was calmly reviewing a stack of invoices. "You think you can just sweep in and take over?" Leila didn't even look up. "I didn't sweep in. I worked here for almost 2 years. This is my hotel. I've been here since it opened. And now you've been here to see it change hands," Claire blinked. "You're not qualified." Leila set the papers down. "I have a bachelor's degree in hospitality management, a dual certification in business franchising and conflict resolution. I speak 3 languages fluently, and unlike you, I've worked in every department of this hotel." Claire opened her mouth, closed it. "This isn't about that. This is about loyalty." "No," Leila said, eyes level. "This is about leadership." Around noon, Leila made one change, a small one, but deliberate, the placard on the executive office. Door had always read General Manager, Thomas D. Whitaker. She walked into the back storage, pulled out a blank silver nameplate, and used the labeler to slide in one simple line, Leila A. Rahman, Acting General Manager. She wiped the glass clean herself, peeled the adhesive, and mounted it. Then she stepped back and looked at it, just once. A few feet away, 2 maintenance workers watched silently, almost reverently. No speech, no announcement, just presence. That afternoon, Claire stood in the back alley on her smoke break, even though she didn't smoke. She stared at the concrete, then at the street beyond it, the street she used to feel above, Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "Did you get fired?" She didn't answer, because technically no, she hadn't been fired. She'd just been replaced, outclassed, outmaneuvered, outrespected by the girl she used to order around like furniture. Inside the hotel, Leila walked the halls slowly, speaking to every employee as if seeing them for the first time, even though she'd seen them 100 times before. The old night porter, who used to offer her gum when she worked doubles, the housekeeper who once covered for her when Claire gave her the wrong shift, the intern who used to sneak her leftover pastries from the brunch buffet. Each one looked at her differently now, not because she asked them to, but because they saw it in her eyes, the quiet knowing. The steady poise. This wasn't revenge. This was restoration. And that night, when the last guest had checked in and the lobby lights dimmed to their soft evening glow, Leila walked out the front doors of the Royal Phoenix Hotel, head high, shoulders steady, and for the first time since she'd been hired, she didn't use the service exit. She didn't have to anymore, because she had the key to every door. The press release went live on Monday morning, just after sunrise, before most guests had even made it to the continental breakfast, the Royal Phoenix Hotel's website quietly updated its About Us page. A short paragraph, simple font. "We are proud to announce the appointment of Leila Rahman as Acting General Manager, in partnership with Northwell Acquisitions and the Charleston Equity Development Fund. Ms. Rahman brings with her a depth of knowledge, integrity, and vision shaped by years of hands-on experience in every facet of hospitality." By noon, the news had spread across local hospitality boards. By 3 p.m., it hit the inboxes of every vendor, event planner, and partner who had ever worked with the hotel. And by 4:15 p.m., Claire was standing frozen behind the front desk when a sharply dressed guest with a golf tan and mirrored sunglasses strolled in. Mr. Danvers, the same one who once scoffed at Leila for looking foreign and not being the right face for the front. He walked past the concierge, tossed his keys on the marble counter, and gave Claire a flat, familiar smirk. "Need my suite upgraded. My room's got a view of a brick wall, and there's a scuff on the duvet." Claire smiled the way she always had, overly tight and eager. "Of course, Mr. Danvers. Let me see what's available." "No need," said a voice behind her. Leila stepped forward, tablet in hand, her navy blazer sharp against the cream of the lobby walls, her hair neatly tucked beneath a deep green hijab, calm, unbothered. Mr. Danvers turned, brows raised, and then recognition washed over his face like cold water. "You?" he said. "You're still here?" "I am," Leila replied. "And so are you. Unfortunately, the governor's suite is booked tonight. I didn't ask for that." She glanced at her screen. "You did, last year, and the year before. And you were offered an apology for the scuff you claimed existed, which 3 housekeepers couldn't verify." Claire shifted beside her, visibly uncomfortable. Leila continued, steady as granite. "Today, you're in the Crescent Suite. It's lovely. Faces the garden. I made sure of it myself." Mr. Danvers stared at her, processing. "And what exactly is your role here now? Concierge? Housekeeping? PR?" She met his gaze, polite and unflinching. "I'm the general manager," he blinked. For a moment, the lobby fell quiet. Claire's hand curled slightly over the desk edge. Danvers chuckled once. "Right." Then Leila turned the tablet so he could see the screen, her full name, her title, the ownership watermark in the corner. She didn't say anything, didn't have to. His eyes lingered, shifted, then flicked toward Claire, who suddenly couldn't make eye contact with either of them. "I see," he said finally. Leila smiled. "If there's anything else you need, we'll be happy to assist." Mr. Danvers took the key card from her hand like it burned, and for the first time since she met him, he walked away without another word. That night, As the lobby wound down and the clatter from the banquet room softened into laughter, Leila stood beside the front desk, hands lightly resting on the counter where she had once been forbidden to stand. A few feet away, Claire was pretending to update the floral delivery log, though there hadn't been flowers delivered in 2 weeks. "You embarrassed him," Claire finally said, not looking up. "No," Leila said gently. "He embarrassed himself. I just didn't let him forget it." Claire looked at her, then really looked. There was something hollow behind her eyes. Not fear, not even anger anymore. Just the weight of reality, sitting heavy where arrogance used to be. "What happens to me when the deal closes?" Leila didn't answer immediately. She walked over slowly and set down a manila envelope. Claire frowned, picked it up and opened it. Inside, a letter of recommendation, printed on high-end hotel stationery. And beneath that, a check. Severance. A generous one. Claire looked up, confused. "I don't need revenge," Leila said quietly. "I needed a new standard." Claire's mouth opened, but no words came. "I think you were better than how you treated people. I hope you find that version of yourself again." Then Leila turned and walked back toward the office, past the chandeliers she used to polish, past the desk she used to clean beneath, and through the doors that now bore her name. The old elevator creaked like it was clearing its throat. It was the original lift from the Royal Phoenix's grand opening in 1949, polished brass, hand-cranked override, velvet side rails fraying at the seams. Most guests didn't know it still worked. Most staff weren't allowed to use it, but Mr. Harold did. He had been the elevator operator for nearly 4 decades. Now in his late 70s, he came in just once a week to polish the paneling and test the emergency brake line. Not because anyone asked him to, but because he had pride and because, in his words, "It's rude to let something this fine die forgotten." The hotel used to send him gift cards for his time. Now Leila met him at the door personally. "Mr. Harold," she smiled, holding the inner gate open. "I've got something for you." He looked her over. Same girl from the utility closet hallway, always polite, always invisible. Except now she wore a blazer. The gold keys on her lapel weren't for show. "Am I in trouble?" he said, only half joking. "No, sir," she said, leading him in. "You're in history." They rode the elevator to the rooftop, the lift groaning. As it climbed past the lobby chandeliers, the banquet floor, the guest suites, Mr. Harold kept one hand steady on the lever, like it was sacred. At the top, Leila opened the terrace doors and walked him out. There, next to the staff garden she had recently restored, stood a plaque. Bronze, new. The Harold Davis Rooftop Conservatory. In honor of 40 years of quiet dignity and service to the Royal Phoenix, Mr. Harold stared at it, said nothing, then blinked hard and reached for his handkerchief. "I didn't think anyone remembered," he whispered. "We did," Leila said. "They just didn't say it." He sat for a long while on the new bench beside the planter boxes, watched the sunset smear itself across the Charleston skyline like fire over water, said nothing else. Leila didn't need him to. Downstairs, things were changing. The break room had been repainted. The no loitering sign had been taken down from the staff entrance, and for the first time in the hotel's history, there was a Staff of the Month board, with pictures, real captions, and bonuses attached. That month it featured Alicia, the housekeeper who once snuck Leila tea on a double shift. Alicia had cried when they surprised her at the morning meeting, not because of the recognition, but because it came from someone who knew what the job felt like. Claire had been gone a week. Officially on leave, unofficially already interviewing elsewhere. Leila hadn't spoken to her since the severance envelope, but she'd heard through the industry grapevine that Claire had cited creative differences as the reason for her exit, which was, fine, let her keep her pride. Leila wasn't interested in humiliation. She was interested in evolution. One morning, a new trainee named Darnell, fresh out of high school, nervous, baggy suit, too big for his thin frame, approached Leila while she was adjusting the lobby floral arrangement. "Miss Leila," he asked quietly. "I think I messed up a room key. I assigned it to the wrong guest." She straightened the last orchid, then looked at him. "Okay, let's fix it." "No, I mean, it was that Danvers guy. He was kinda rude." She smiled, slightly. "You're not the first," Darnell blinked. "Am I in trouble?" She handed him the backup key card. "Not unless you give up." He held it, unsure whether it was a joke. Then she added softer, "You belong here, Darnell. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." That evening, Leila stood alone in the main lobby after closing, lights dimmed low, her reflection stretching, long across the polished marble. She watched the elevator descend, watched the bellhop cart roll into place. Everything had changed, yet everything still pulsed with the rhythm of service. Bells, keys, linens, names, and now, finally, her name was one of them. The boardroom smelled like citrus polish and legacy, dark wood paneling, frosted glass doors, leather chairs that groaned under the weight of old names and older habits. 3 of the hotel's former stakeholders sat on one side of the long table, like judges in a quiet courtroom. Ken from Northwell sat near the end, calm, unreadable. The chair at the head of the table remained empty until Leila stepped in. She wore a slate-grey suit, no name tag, just the small gold phoenix pin on her lapel, a symbol redesigned 2 weeks ago under her direction. Now it had wings that reached upward, feathers touched with silver. "Good morning," she said, standing. She didn't sit. Not yet. The meeting was called to finalize the transfer of operational control from the former owners to Northwell Acquisitions, with Leila as designated managing partner. Most of the paperwork had been completed. The finances were aligned. The law was on her side. But what they wanted, she knew, was proof of tone. They wanted her to ask permission to lead. She didn't. Instead, she clicked the remote and brought up the first slide. Photos, data, staff retention rates since her appointment, guest review upticks, supplier loyalty rebounds, events booked by marginalized groups who had once been subtly turned away. And then came the last slide. A proposed plan to turn the unused West Wing, once a private suite reserved for visiting dignitaries, into a training and mentorship center for hospitality students from underserved communities, with job placement pipelines and language support. She closed the presentation and finally sat down. "For decades," she said, steady, "this hotel represented Southern charm, but only for certain people. So I'd like to keep the charm, but not the limits." No one spoke for a beat. Then Ken smiled faintly. One of the former owners, a silver-haired man with tobacco skin and a reputation for backroom deals, shifted in his seat. "You're bold," he said. Leila looked at him. "You were once." He glanced at the documents, then back at her. "You'll need friends in this business," she smiled softly. "I'm not looking for friends. I'm building family." He leaned back, said nothing more. 2 days later, the deed transfer became public. Local media ran a quiet profile. From housekeeping to hotelier, the quiet rise of Leila Rahman. A few industry blogs picked it up. Then a national equity magazine ran a feature, and the story caught fire. Young workers from cities across the South wrote in. Old co-workers sent her letters. Even her father, from a small apartment above a halal bakery in Greenville, called with tears in his voice he tried to disguise as pride. "I always said you had your mother's stubborn in you." Leila laughed. "You said it like it was a bad thing." It was. Until now. 6 months later, the hotel held a private ribbon cutting for the new West Wing Learning Suite. Leila wore the same green hijab from her first walk through the hotel's front doors. The janitor who had trained her on water valves was there. So was Mr. Harold, smiling from his rooftop bench. Darnell, now a shift lead, stood beside her holding the scissors. The plaque read, "The Rahman Room, for those who were told they didn't belong." May they always walk through the front door. The ribbon fluttered to the ground, the cameras flashed, and for one breathless moment, the girl who used to carry linens up the back stairwell, who had eaten cold lentils in the break room while others laughed behind her back, stood not in anyone's shadow, but in the full light of her earned future. That night, long after the ceremony had ended, Leila remained in the lobby, alone. She walked slowly toward the elevator. The old one, Mr. Harold's favorite, ran her fingers along the brass panel, then turned toward the marble desk she used to stand behind in silence. And now, above that desk, behind the glass, rested a simple black and gold frame. Inside it, her photo. Below it, a quote. Leadership. It is not about being seen. It's about seeing everyone else. Leila Rahman, she looked at it for a long moment, then turned and walked home through the front doors of the Royal Phoenix, because they were hers now and always would be.